A quick and easy IKEA hack trick. So what I'd like to do is convert this into a cheese tray. So I have these two hardware pieces, and what I'm going to do is some quick and easy measurements on either side, and I'm going to show you a few quick tips just to make this a quick and easy DIY. So I'm going to place some painter's tape on all four sides on both sides of the board. And this will also allow me to make my measurements and mark them onto the tape. This particular cutting board actually has a little bit of a bevel on all four sides. So the bottom base of it is a little tiny bit wider than the top, so it bevels up, not quite at a 45-degree angle, but this is going to indicate that the smaller portion is the top. And actually the IKEA sign right at the side is going to tell you by looking at it correctly that that is the top part of the board. So it's the face of what sits up where that IKEA sign is. So that is the right side up. So using the screw that came with the hardware, I'm going to find a drill bit that's going to fit the exact size, and I've marked exactly where I need my screw holes just by using the measuring tape as well as using the hardware to indicate exactly where I need to make those drill bits. By placing that painter's tape on both sides, this just actually helps prevent the wood to split. When I place the drill bit into the actual board, just go nice and slowly, and this will also help prevent any splitting of the wood. So place the screws in as well as the actual hardware handle. But because the actual board is completely flat, these little screws are still going to be kind of projected out a little bit. So I have another little trick I want to add to this, so that way those screw heads don't scrape any tabletops or countertops when you're actually using it as a tray. So I'm going to use these little felt bumpers. You can buy a whole pack of these of different sizes, and I'm going to place them at all four corners, and they're actually a little bit higher up than the drill head itself. So this way when you use the board or slide it, it actually won't scratch anything. So I had picked up 4 shadow boxes, and I think these make great decor. There's so many versatile things that you can do with them. So I've been actually making a rock collection, and I've been picking at all kinds of rocks from the beach and including my own backyard. So what I've done is created a whole color code, and I thought it would be fun just to make some very simple art. I'm just using a white sheet paper, basically an 8x10, and I'm just going to configure kind of like a little action theme and just see what I can make with the different shapes and the different colors of the rocks. I've seen huge variations from Pinterest and some very creative people out there. This is the first time I've done it, so this is a great little practice run. What's really nice about the shadow box that I picked up, and I actually got this at Hobby Lobby for 50% off, so that's why I picked up 4 of them. And the actual inside is a piece of material that's a little bit proliferated with a little bit of padding in it. So it's got this kind of a 3D projection to it. So I'm just taking the shapes of the rocks and just kind of giving the illusion of a man actually just flying a kite or having a balloon. And I'm even going to use a little piece of yarn just so that way it's just going to, again, just give a little bit more 3D projection. I'm using that hot glue gun, and I put it at a fabric setting, which is usually about 50% of the heat based on your glue gun. And this way I can glue the actual most high ridge of each of these rock pieces. Because there's so many different ridges on the rock, just pick the highest piece that will actually stick onto the fabric, and you're good to go. So I tested it all out, and what I will do as soon as I'm done putting it together after I finish this design is actually just slowly put it up on its side and then turn it upside down to make sure that that glue has adhered really well. But one thing that was a real big inspiration was to go onto Pinterest and just type in Pebble art. And there were so many creative ideas. So by creating your own little rock collection, which is free, there is actually quite a collection of things that you could create by just playing around with the different shapes and seeing what you can come up with. I love this natural decor, and the shadow boxes that I was lucky enough to find too has that kind of a raw frame to it. So this is a very versatile piece that can go in any decor. But you could also use all kinds of birch wood, and there's so many creative things just from the nature and things that you can find in your own backyard or even out in parks or out on trails. So these little rock art designs are a lot of fun, and again, you can make a huge collection, and with all the different shades, it really starts to become with endless possibilities. So as I say, I ended up making 3 of them, and then I'm going to use another shadow box for another idea. But like I said, this is endless, and this is a lot of fun that you could do with friends and family. Our little red poodle, Pascal, is absolutely having a blast with our new puppy, Gabriel. These two are 2 peas in a pod. They are turning into the best of friends. I really wanted to demonstrate the simplicity of canvas board, that it is such an easy, relaxing way to exercise anything artistic. And just because you don't feel like you're somebody who can draw, I really thought I would take the opportunity to show you very simple outlines. So for this one, all I've done is 2 pears, and I just tried to make it as an intent that what I want to do is really show how you make shadows with your colors and color tones. So for me, what I do is outline, and I do a black outline. The paintbrushes that I'm using is a 1 and a 1.5 inch paintbrush. And then what I try to do is actually always hold my paintbrush from the center of the handle, never too close to the bristles, because what I want is the bristles to be doing a lot of the work. And with the paint shades, what I want the paint shades to do is work in together and kind of let them have fun together. And it's a great way to practice. I have 3 shades of green, so kind of like a light, medium, and dark shade of green using acrylic paints. The biggest things that I use is a lot of black and a lot of white. With using the black and the white, I'm kind of making this gradient and this different spectrum of grays only using those greens. A lot of people, when they paint, they actually like to make that background first and then create the shape of what they're going to paint. But I thought by using very simple animate objects is a fantastic way to practice. It could be anything from a dish to a cup, and a lot of people start by just using fruits, because this way what you want to really study and practice with is how to give that 3D dimension. And it could be more of an abstract, it could have a little bit more of a smoother transition with your colors, but it's playing with those colors. And I think What I haven't detailed in the past videos before with acrylics is it's actually really important to keep your bristles of your paintbrushes moist. So every time, even knowing it's a kind of a little bit sped through, every time I'm dipping down, I'm actually just going and dipping my bristles into some water. But it's always, always amazing that all I'm really actually doing is playing with shades. So again, I'm using a lot of black and a lot of white, because what that's doing is I'm kind of creating a reflection. So if my light source is coming from the right side or the left side of the board, and how that would kind of cascade down to give the fruit objects more of a projection of still life. And it's all with the simple use of 3 green colors and some black and white. And all I'm doing is these little tiny brush strokes. So I'll take a little bit of darker green, add even a little bit more of a black to that green, or I'll use the light green, add a little bit of white paint to that. And just, again, I'm just playing with that spectrum of black and white all the time and just doing layers. So I'm kind of creating these shadows. And the shadows primarily always come from adding that black and white. What I'm always trying to do is accommodate what I call kind of these happy mistakes. Sometimes I've made something too light, or the shadow is too, it doesn't seem to resonate, meaning that I'm not playing around with my brush strokes enough. So it looks too flat. So this is why it's really, really important to always just keep your brush moving. Never stay in one spot. Just keep that brush moving. If you're staying in one spot, just move to a different spot on the canvas. I'll work up top. I'm working up top and I'm staying in one spot too long, I'll just come down and work at the bottom and then come back up. But you're always moving around and you're always moving your bristles around. And you'd be really surprised. You do not have to be a drawer. You do not have to have experience painting. All you have to do is just play with it. And it's a lot of fun. It's just a canvas. If you don't like what you've created, you've practiced and you've learned from some happy mistakes moving forward, so you would try another object. The other thing that's really helpful is to even take photographs. So this way you can see where your progression is. And the other thing that's also really helpful is to actually have a picture of something you want to paint. So this way you have something that you can reflect with by looking at and see where those spectrums of white and black are in it. I love practicing with paints, and canvas to me is one of the easiest and least expensive ways. You can work on smaller canvas boards. There's the 8x10s, but I have actually, just from my own history, I have tons of bigger canvases. So this one I've actually painted over from a previous project, probably from a few years ago, and all I'm doing is creating coffee cups. And what I'm trying to demonstrate here is I wanted to kind of show that up at the top right hand corner, I want to put highlights and arrows where I want to make sure that that white spectrum, when I'm going to use a lot of white in the colors, is going to show. And at the lower left hand side, I'm now going to actually put darker shadows. So I'll leave a mark on the canvas board, grab that pencil and just outline. So I'm going to stack some coffee mugs and I'm going to show exactly. And again, I'm not a drawer. I pretty much make stick figures myself, but I'm using the paints and the light reflection of black and white to give the illusion that there's more of an object. I'm only using 3 brushes. One 1-inch brush, so the width of the brush is 1 inch, and 1.5. And again, with the long handle, I'm always holding that handle pretty much about halfway up because I want the bristles to be doing the work. And again, you always want to kind of make sure that your bristles stay moist. So it's good to have a little cup just with some water that you can dip the bristles of your paintbrush in. This just helps keep the paint moving, especially when you're doing a lot of shading. So I am really just trying to practice myself. It's been a long time since I've painted on canvas, and I find practicing so relaxing. I'll go and put my headphone set on, put some music on, and I'm just in my own play world, and it's, to me, very therapeutic. But I'm not trying to paint anything to be perfect. I don't think anyone should. I think you should be painting for the joy of the process of it. And again, all I'm using is 3 different shades of yellow and a ton of white paint and a ton of black paint. And this, I'm going to be adding a lot more shades of gray into this. So I'm adding black, I'm adding white, and I'm seeing how I want my shadows. And as I keep making these shadows, whether I use the yellow paint, the white paint, or the black paint, I'm constantly having to go back and make corrections. I've made it too light here, I've made it too dark here. So I'll constantly stand back from the canvas and see where I want that light source. But this particular project was an excellent one for shading, and you're keeping it in a realism, but it's also a little bit on the abstract with all the texture of brush strokes. So again, I'm recycling from an old canvas I had, and I wanted to keep practicing the shapes and objects and how to create those shadings. So again, I'm using that black and white to create different shades of yellow. So I'm only using 3 shades of different yellow. So there's a really dark yellow, a medium yellow, and a light yellow. And I'm using that with that black and white, and I'm just trying to, again, create all of these shadows. So I have the light spectrum coming from the top right, and then the shadows kind of dipping down towards the left. And it's just a lot of fun and practice. So keep those pictures from when you first start and see how you're going into and how you're working your shades. I always get the stretch canvases, and these ones are a little bit smaller. And again, just practicing those small, easy, animate objects. So I'm only going to do 1 pear. And what I want to do is really work on lots of colors. So I'm going to use a bunch, but I'm always going to have my black and white as my main source of shadowing. This time, I want to do something a little bit more abstract. So it's not about making sure the colors have smoother transitions. This is just about layering the colors and letting the colors collide. That's the beauty about abstract. So my brush strokes are super short, just really, really constantly moving. Just short brush strokes and almost overlapping and cross-hatching them. So I put a bunch of green down. Now I'm going to put a bunch of black as well as white. Again, just creating those shades. Always have a cup of water on hand so you have a A little bit of water to keep your bristles nice and moist. And again, I'm just playing with some primary colors, and it's really fun to kind of mash them into each other. And using that black and white, you're going to be making a whole different spectrum of other colors. And again, I'm using the colors as shading. So I'm going to use some yellow on one side, add a bunch of white, and on the other side, I'm just going to add some cobalt blue. But to make cobalt blue more midnight, what I'm going to do is a black wash first. The other thing that's really important that I've learned that I find really helpful when I'm working with objects is to create an anchor point. And the other thing that really helps too is to either film yourself with your painting progress or take photographs of the different progressions that you're at. But again, I wanted to create a really, really dark blue, so I'm using a lot of black, and I used the yellow, but added a lot of white. So I've got it dark on one side and light on the other. And the anchor that I'm speaking of is that shadow underneath your actual object. So this really helps to make it look like it's sitting onto something. It's not just kind of floating in air. So having that little bit of black at the bottom, or sometimes white, gives it an anchor point and shows that it's actually shadowed by sitting on something. But painting these simple objects is a great way to practice painting. And when you're using a piece of fruit, it's really easy to just a simple little draw out. And again, taking those photographs and seeing how your transitions of your colors, and just keep layering it. It can be a lot of fun. Thank you so much for watching this week's video, and I'm really looking forward to seeing you soon. Until then, take care.